This week, Designing Minds features the second of 3 episodes on world-renowned graphic artist Stefan Sagmeister. His eccentric style firmly in place, Sagmeister moves to New York City where he cements his status as a design luminary when he launches his own design studio. Publishes a slew of best-selling books and shocks the world with a pro bono project of self-mutilation.
Hi, I'm Stefan Sagmeister. I'm a graphic designer and I'm on Designing Minds. Tibor Kalman ran a studio called Evan Company, which in my student time and afterwards was probably the biggest influence. That came about because he was not that interested in form and very much interested in the idea and what that idea was for and how it would be applied. My favorite quote about what is art and what is design and what might be the difference comes from Donald Judd. Design has to work, art does not. And these things all have to work. They have a function outside my desire for self-expression, like in this case, create media attention for a design festival. I think what my time, and it was not all that long, but what my time at Evan Company, I think the one thing that I for sure learned was the importance of making things happen. That as a designer, it's much more important to figure that out than it is, I don't know, kerning or any of these details of the design profession that I know many of us tend to get hung up in. We opened the studio with a little sub-headline that said Design for the Music Industry, with the desire to combine my two loves, design and music. Didn't work in the beginning. The record labels wouldn't give us any jobs. And, you know, instead of doing any fantastic CD covers for my heroes, our first job was a brochure for a toilet seat that came with a remote control that not only washed your behind, but also cleaned up the air or broke it into 2 different molecules. Well, the AIGA poster for Detroit was to create something that would tell its own story, that it was clear how it was made. Cutting into the skin, I definitely thought it would yield a strong image. We photographed it with a large format camera, 8 by 10 inch camera, so every pore was visible, and for the people who actually saw the original poster, it was very clear that it was not retouched. Because some of our work has a handmade quality, it is sometimes misunderstood that the studio or myself am somehow technophobic, which is not the case at all. It did hurt a lot. I didn't count on that, but it took also much longer. And there was a time when I thought, let's just forget about it. But the deadline was there, and it was then a choice in between going through with it or being halfway through and basically having to come up with a new idea, which somehow seemed the more dreadful choice. In the last 6 years, we worked for a whole number of clients that gave us incredible amount of freedom, unusual amounts of freedom for within the graphic design world. The first one was a magazine that said we need dividing pages. We have a 6-part magazine to create these double-page spreads and do something, anything. This proved difficult in the very beginning because no limitations can be a big problem. Sounded like a good job, took it on immediately, and then struggled for a long while, having not been aware how incredible lack of limitations can create its own set of difficulties. In my desire to fill this, I reread things in my diary, picked one, and that then created the first one. The type itself got reprinted quite a bit, and we got all sorts of feedback. We got to do a self-expressive piece that went beyond the normal selling and promotional process. And I think in a number of cases, the audience got something that was more interesting than the straightforward sell. We've been doing work that I'm happy with for a while, and we get clients that want specifically that kind of work. Even now work that's, I'd say, quite outside of the graphic design mainstream, you know, that wouldn't really be promotional, doesn't have any logos attached to it, doesn't often even mention the client. And we now get calls from clients that want specifically that kind of work, that wouldn't want a, you know, branding program from us. And we published a book recently containing all of them under the same title, Things I've Learned in My Life So Far. That by itself, of course, needed to be also interactive, has a little interaction built into the book, has a larger interaction on a website where you can upload your own designed pieces of what you've learned in your life. That already yields very interesting results. There's a lot of great pieces up there. And I don't know, started this whole little genre within the studio where clients call specifically for that they want another sentence as opposed to straightforward graphic design. I think that in the own studio, the red thread that goes through is that we are very much in charge of whom we work with.
Log on next week to see a giant wall of rotting bananas and a collaborative design project that harnesses the power of the web.